This season in 2025, one name has been on everyone's lips: Oscar Piastri. In his third year in Formula 1, he hasn't just been good, he's been a machine. A relentless, calculating force of nature leading the World Championship, locked in a tense battle with his own superstar teammate Lando Norris. He was the very definition of consistency, the guy who simply did not make mistakes, always calm, always collecting points. The story we were all telling ourselves as the season unfolded was that it was over. With a 31-point lead in the championship, with 7 incredible wins, 5 pole positions and an unbelievable scoring streak of over 30 races. He seemed like a champion and it felt like nothing and nobody could stop him. The title was his to lose. But what if that incredible run of flawless form was actually a weakness in disguise? What if the very consistency that made him the favorite was setting him up for one of the most spectacular collapses we've seen in years? What if the immense pressure of a championship fight was building up steam under the surface, just waiting for the right moment to violently explode? Because that's exactly what we're going to break down today. We're going to dive deep and look at every single mistake from his disastrous weekend in Baku. We're going to analyze what caused this perfect driver to suddenly fall apart and what it means for a championship fight that just got blown wide open. We'll see that the damage to his car wasn't from one big, dramatic crash. It was the result of a chain reaction, a devastating series of small errors that added up to a weekend from hell. And understanding this domino effect is the absolute key to understanding everything. So to really understand how truly shocking his weekend in Baku was, you need to understand just how good Piastri had been all year. He wasn't just leading the championship, he was commanding it. Let's just look at the standings before that fateful race. There he was, sitting proudly at the very top, with a healthy 31-point lead over his McLaren teammate, Lando Norris. In Formula 1, that's a significant gap, especially when you're this deep into the season. It gives you a cushion, a bit of breathing room that should allow you to drive without desperation. But it was how he built that lead that was so impressive. This wasn't a season of lucky wins or inheriting positions from others' misfortune. This was pure, cold-blooded performance. The on-screen graphics tell the story. 7 victories in 2025. And these weren't simple wins. We saw a dominant win in Bahrain, a technical masterclass to win in Spain, and a masterful drive in the wet conditions of Belgium that left the rest of the field looking like amateurs. And his consistency? Before Baku, he had finished in the points for over 30 consecutive races. That's more than an entire season's worth of races without a single retirement or a finish outside the top 10. It's a streak that is incredibly difficult to achieve in a sport where a 50-cent mechanical part can fail or a tiny mistake can end your day instantly. In total, he had already collected an astonishing 24 podiums in his young career. The media and the experts were all in agreement. The words they used to describe him were always the same: ice cool, metronomic, like a clock that never misses a beat. Fans praised how much he had improved from his already impressive first 2 seasons, especially in his qualifying pace and his ability to manage his tires over a long race, 2 of the most critical skills for a top driver. Mid-season reports from nearly every major outlet had him graded as the #1 driver on the grid. He was, by all accounts, the complete package. So with such a remarkable season, with a car that seemed unbeatable and a driver who seemed unbreakable, Oscar Piastri looked destined for his first World Championship. So what on earth happened? The answer arrived with a jolt in Baku, the weekend where the unstoppable force met an immovable wall, mostly one he built himself. And we'll start with the third biggest mistake of his weekend, because it set the tone for the absolute chaos that followed. We're on the starting grid for the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, but just before the lights go out, Oscar twitches. His foot eases off the clutch just a fraction of a second too early. He jumped the start. Realizing his catastrophic mistake, he slams onto the brakes, but the damage is done. His car's anti-stall system, designed to prevent the engine from dying, kicks in. But in doing so, it stops the car completely. When the race actually began, he was left crawling off the line as the entire grid streamed past him. From a bad starting position, he had dropped to the very back of the grid. It was a complete disaster. In his own words after the race, he called it a silly simple error, explaining that he was just too eager, anticipating the start too much. That one mistake was huge, but if you don't also couple it with what happened the day before, then the magic of this whole story is lost. because the real turning point, the moment the first and most important domino fell, was in qualifying. Let's rewind 24 hours. The conditions in Baku were incredibly difficult. On a narrow street circuit with unforgiving walls waiting to punish any mistake, it was a nightmare. We saw multiple drivers, including experienced guys like Charles Leclerc and Alex Albon, making mistakes and ending up in the barriers. This proves just how tough it was out there for everyone. Oscar was in Q3, the final part of qualifying, and he was on a fast lap, pushing the car to its absolute limit to try and secure a high grid position. Coming into the tricky downhill braking zone of turn 3, he pushed just a little too hard and crashed into the barrier. The crash was enough to end his session and cause significant work for his mechanics. The consequence? He would be starting the race from P9. This put him right in the middle of the dangerous midfield pack, where accidents are much more likely to happen. He was lucky in a way, because his main rival, Lando Norris, only managed to qualify 2 places ahead in P7, so he didn't fully capitalize on the mistake. But starting in P9 was the first major error that put him on the back foot for the entire weekend. But that was just the beginning of the dominoes falling. The real disaster was yet to come. The fatal blow happened on lap 1 of the race. After a disastrous jump start left him at the back, he was desperate to make up positions. As he followed the pack of cars into the turn 5, he turned into the corner, made a mistake and crashed out. And his race was over. After a slow climb out of the car, his incredible scoring streak was finished. His first DNF in over a year. And in a slightly funny but also sad moment, cameras later caught him standing by the side of the track, watching the rest of the race on his phone. It was, without a doubt, one of the worst weekends of his entire racing career. So we've seen what happened, a qualifying crash, a jump start and a race-ending mistake. But the big question is, why? Why did a driver who had been almost perfect all year suddenly fall apart so spectacularly? The first and most obvious reason is the snowball effect. It wasn't one big blow, but 1,000 little cuts. This wasn't one isolated mistake, it was a chain reaction where each error made the next one more likely. It started with the mistake on Friday, then the qualifying crash led to a bad grid spot in P9. Starting in the midfield created a new kind of pressure, the need for a perfect start. That pressure to get a good start led him to being overeager and jumping the lights. The jump start then dropped him to the very back of the grid, creating the ultimate pressure, desperation. He felt he had to recover positions immediately, which led him to take more risks, underestimate the turn and ultimately crash out of the race. The second major factor was championship pressure. Think about it, for the first time in his F1 career, Oscar Piastri was leading the World Championship. Every single point matters, and the weight of expectation from the team, the media and himself is enormous. This was arguably the first weekend where the pressure truly got to him. He was clearly overmotivated, trying to do too much. He pushed too hard in qualifying and was too anxious at the start. It was a classic case of a driver trying to force the situation instead of letting it come to them. Next, we also have to talk about the external factors, and in Baku, that means the wind. The city is famous for its strong gusting winds, and on this weekend, they were particularly bad. For a Formula 1 car, which relies so heavily on aerodynamics, unpredictable wind can make it incredibly difficult to drive. A sudden tailwind into a braking zone can make it feel like the brakes aren't working. And finally, no driver is perfect. Every single one of the all-time greats has had terrible weekends where nothing goes right. Think of Ayrton Senna crashing out from a huge lead in Monaco in 1988. Think of Sebastian Vettel's errors in 2018 while fighting for a championship. After such a long, incredible run of near perfection, a messy, difficult weekend was, in a way, statistically inevitable. It wasn't a sign that he had lost his talent overnight. It was a brutal, public reversion to the mean. It was a reminder that even the best in the world are still human. So after all the drama, what's the damage? Let's look at the new championship standings. Before Baku, Piastri's lead over Norris was 31 points. After his DNF and Norris finishing in 7th, that lead has been cut down to 25 points. Now, while it was a terrible weekend for Oscar, it could have been much worse. Norris only managed to score 6 points for his 7th place finish after getting stuck in traffic after a slow pit stop. If Lando had won the race, Oscar's lead would have been almost completely gone. So in a strange way, it was a huge missed opportunity for Norris as much as it was a disaster for Piastri. Oscar got away with it to a degree. But the future is suddenly looking a lot more shaky. The momentum has shifted. Norris has now beaten Piastri in the last 2 races, and his confidence is a huge factor in this sport. The next race is the Singapore Grand Prix, a tight, twisting street circuit. It's a track where Norris has always been strong. In fact, he won there in 2024 with Piastri finishing 3rd. The high downforce, technical nature of the Singapore track is perfect for Lando's driving style, and it represents a perfect opportunity for him to reduce that points gap even further. The championship, which looked like a done deal a week ago, is now an uncertain, tense, and incredible close fight to the finish. So, this now becomes the most important test of Oscar Piastri's career so far. Great champions aren't defined by their perfect days when everything goes right. They are defined by how they bounce back from their worst ones. This is where we separate the great drivers from the legendary ones. Will this disaster weekend rattle him? Will it make him second guess himself? Or will he be able to put it behind him and come back even stronger? The answer to those questions will decide the championship, which remains closer than ever. My opinion is that Piastri probably still has a slight edge. His consistency and calmness this season show he has the mental strength. He is incredibly adaptable and can likely learn from this and move on. But you can never count out Lando Norris. His ability to handle pressure and constantly improve means he absolutely has what it takes to steal this championship away.